We weren't supposed to play each other. We were supposed to play two computer players.
That's fine.
You know what? Oh well. So much for being cooperative. I guess we're going to be.
We're going to compete. Yeah, we're gonna fight. We're going to see who is.
Hey, and we are live, and I'm the expert layman, and I am joined by Kava. Did I say that right?
People say it different ways, and it doesn't really matter too much. I don't think anyone probably pronounces it correctly because it's actually a Hebrew name.
It's like Kava?
Chava. It's got to have that sound.
What character is associated with the phlegm sound?
I don't know. I actually don't know Hebrew. I think I chose this name years ago just because it's the Hebrew name for Eve. So,
that's cool.
The original woman, the OG woman. So I like that aesthetic.
The reason we're doing the stream is there's this thing that comes up a lot, and if you watch Adam and Sitch, they tend to dwell on this a lot. It's like, is the person being dishonest, or are they just being stupid? Are they being bad faith, or do they really just not understand how it is they're appearing? And I think that there's a couple other dimensions to this, but do you want to just kind of like what you think of when someone's acting in bad faith? Like, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, the term bad faith, I hadn't really heard of before I started watching sort of the debate bro circuit and watched debate bros constantly scream it at each other. So in some sense, I came to understand it had meaning that had been diluted over time. But
things that have a meaning tend to turn into a pejorative that doesn't mean anything.
Exactly.
Over time.
Well, it's interesting. I was looking it up today because I had come across a lawsuit that used the phrase bad faith. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's a legal term. And I believe it was a legal term originally. It's a legal standard for lawyers. If you're found to have acted in bad faith, you're basically being deceitful or manipulative of the process. So the example in the lawsuit that I was looking at was a lawyer who would file a complaint and then rescind it and then edit it and then file it again and just keep doing that to keep the process going. So basically abusing the system.
Not acting in earnest, having an ulterior motive for your actions besides the stated one.
You're not actually trying to achieve a legitimate thing. You are in fact just gaming the system to your desires. And I think that's kind of relevant to rhetoric because in the debate bro world, a lot of the time rhetoric is sort of weaponized. It's people who want to just win, and they know how to win, and they've figured out the magic words to attack other people and win the game, rather than actually doing something productive.
That tends to happen when things get really competitive. It becomes more about the win than what it's purported to be about.
Yeah.
Oh, shoot.
And famously, right, like Vosh saying, I don't care about my morals or my values. It's all about winning. That's what I care about.
Yeah, when you've confused yourself, like, it's like Judge Dredd saying, I am the law, like, I am the truth, the way, and the light. And that's kind of the way certain people like, Vosh tend to see themselves. It's like, no, me winning is the moral good. What I have to do to make that happen is irrelevant. It's really easy to delude yourself that way. Mm-hmm. And that's where I think the other dimension to bad faith comes in that people will delude themselves in such a way that they can act in bad faith, but tell themselves a story about themselves, essentially, that, no, I'm not acting in bad faith. And like, they really don't know that they're doing it, but they're also sort of choosing to not see things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think there's probably in debate, as I thought about it, like what I would define as bad faith, I think there's actually two dimensions to it.
Oh, please elaborate.
There is bad faith argument and bad faith interpretation. And that seems to be actually what a lot of debate bros will try to reference when they're talking about bad faith. So on the bad faith argument side, it's essentially they will hide their true belief, or they will conceal or veil it in some way.
The Mott and Bailey.
Yes, so the Mott and Bailey, or they'll keep their position kind of vague and unclear, because they know if they come out right and say their full position, it's going to be something either unpalatable or unpopular, or is easy to attack. So they'll veil it with euphemism, or just be so vague that you can't actually figure out their position. And I've dealt with people like this. They'll say a thing, and then I'm like, okay, I don't know what you mean, and I ask clarifying questions, and then they get hostile immediately. Just the act of actually asking them to explain their position is a hostile act to them, because that's what they don't want to explain.
Well, even if it's not conscious, they kind of unconsciously understand that if they actually stake out a position, they're going to have to defend that. And you putting them in a position where they might have to defend something feels like an attack. Exactly. But if you're an honest person, you stake out your position because you actually think it's true.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like not defining your terms. Like any debate where people are going to just start arguing without saying what they mean, especially if they have different ideas of what the words mean, or the words can have multiple interpretations, not going through that step, it almost makes it look like both parties are not entirely in good faith.
Right. So that kind of covers the argument side. So if you're basically just not playing fair by concealing your actual position. And then of course there's the bad faith interpretation side, which is what you do to the other's argument, which is all the straw manning, all the misrepresentation, basically trying to find those gotcha moments. And that's a lot of debate bro culture. I don't know how many debates you've seen where you can tell they're fishing for something. Like, just say one thing that I can latch onto and call you a racist or call you a fascist. Like, that's all it is sometimes.
I've been observing online debates since it first emerged with like the atheist Christian stuff back in the early days of YouTube. And I was so fascinated by it. I wanted to learn it all. I wanted to learn all the logical fallacies and, all the philosophical underpinnings. And it kind of culminated with, basically it was a dream where this young earth creationist that I was at work with was at this little like hippie bar in town. I was living near college at the time. And these like atheists and in the dream, they walk up and start arguing with the Christians, and they're just being dicks about it. And in the dream, I walk up and I, for whatever reason, decide to argue the theist position, and I kick their asses. And I wake up like, well, that was weird. And I didn't really realize later, I was trying to tell myself, okay, if you can win this debate from either side with pure rhetoric, it's kind of, the debate's kind of bullshit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's the interesting thing about rhetoric. If you're really good with rhetoric, you really can do just about anything.
It's really about flexing your rhetoric muscles than trying to work out what might actually be, real. But in the cynical actor variety type of person, but then there's people who are kind of they aren't really, they're not cynical, but they're also seem to be arguing in bad faith. And it's very confusing because it can be an otherwise really honest person, but then as soon as they hit a particular topic, it's like they changed. Have you noticed it to some people?
Yeah, and in some sense, I would probably put that up to hidden agenda, or not subconscious agendas. Let's say it's subconscious.
Well, that kind of leads into the other title. Since there isn't a really good word for this, I called these unconscious presuppositions.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely a part of it, because I think people, when they are emotionally invested in something, sometimes they will switch gears and not realize why or in what way.
It's kind of like when I look at some of these things, they're like really basic. Like the one we've seen on like Adam and Sitch a lot has been the America bad, unconscious presupposition.
Yeah.
And they can be a very reasonable person everywhere else, but as soon as you might have to concede that America is not the worst actor in a scenario, they can't go there.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no, but America bad. But they won't, they don't say that, but that's like, that idea has to be serviced, or at least not contradicted. And
it gets stuck.
Yeah.
In a sense.
And and
I think that's a risk. And it's something, I was thinking about this after you told me about the topic. This is something where a postmodernist might have an interesting perspective. I don't know how much you know about postmodernism.
A bit,
I'm guessing you know a bit. I'm sure you do. You're grinding meaning. I can only assume you've done some talking about postmodernity.
I know enough to say that I wish they were right a lot less often than they are. But they've got some understanding of how things work, and they're not always wrong, and it's really annoying.
This sense that we all kind of filter things through a lens, that really everyone has these blinders on in some fashion that restricts our ability to see clearly. Seems to be a universal.
Yeah, we all. The other point I have is these kind of unconscious presuppositions, as I'm calling them. It's like we all have them, and they're not necessarily bad. They're almost like it's almost like moral foundation theory, except it's different.
Yep. It's definitely related, because moral foundations are sort of your underlying instinct towards certain morals, and then your lens is kind of how you interpret those instincts. So they're definitely connected. Crap. Boo. Okay.
Oh, and we're just playing risk to have something going on in the background. Like, the people who aren't just listening will have something to look at. We're not taking this game seriously at all.
Yes. It's all good.
It's supposed to be us two against, like, computer players, but I forgot to include the computer players.
We can see who wins.
Now we're just
see who's the better. I mean, this is me struggling to understand my strategy.
I haven't put a lot of thought into this, but it almost seems like an ideology is like a hole in the firewall for introducing unconscious presuppositions.
Mm-hmm.
Like it, but like the whole media architecture, they'd start. I'm not explaining this very well, but
start over then.
Okay, here's one that's like universal. It's probably a moral foundation of some sort. And it's the strong aversion we have to the destruction of potential.
Mm-hmm.
And there are many ways that this manifests, but when you hear about something bad that happens to somebody, you're like, oh, that's really awful. When you find out that it happens to a kid, it's like, it's so much worse. And we just understand it's worse. It's so much worse.
Yep.
But I think that the reason that we just unconsciously understand that it's worse is because the child you're robbing the potential of the child by damaging it in such a way, whereas an adult isn't going to have as much loss of potential from that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when people get very broken, they are actually attracted to the idea of destroying someone's potential, particularly if it was done to them in a malevolent way. The phrase hurt people comes to mind. Right.
Yeah, it's definitely a warped kind of person who does that. And it makes me wonder what presuppositions might be instinctual. You know?
Well, I think the aversion to the destruction of potential is like the default. Like, if you're in a community that, like, the next generation is who's going to, like, take care of you if you live long enough to become old. So you're very much invested in...
Certainly to some degree, though. I think probably the way that gets interpreted will vary a lot between cultures, because a lot of cultures throughout time and history killed infants with pretty cold calculation, out of concern of like how many mouths you have to feed.
Well, and that it would be like a conflict of you have to trade off the potential of one for the potential of the others. And
Right.
a lot of cultures did not, and it's the amount of investment put in. Like a child, 9 months is a lot, and I should click something. It was about to kick me out of the game.
Attack.
A lot of cultures wouldn't really consider, like ancient Judaism, like it didn't consider a child to be a child until it took its first breath.
Mm-hmm.
And then a lot of times, sacrificing some of your kids for your other kids until they reached a point to where you're getting more out of them than you put into them. Even though they almost certainly didn't see it this way, it's a return on investment type analysis, I think.
Yeah. So definitely, I think the preservation of potential, we could say, is instinctual. I mean, that is the part about moral foundations. It's about moral intuitions. And I think intuition is pretty parallel to the subconscious.
Oh,
It's something that is just felt in your gut and expressed.
Yeah, this is elephant stuff. This is
this is definitely
so much
the
rider
elephant
stuff.
Yeah.
God, I'm so glad I don't have to explain that. Well, I think this is why, pregnancy termination is such a hot issue, because it taps into that.
Mm-hmm.
And it might also
Definitely.
be why, extreme progressive types, some would say, are going after our kids.
Mm-hmm.
But that's probably not a fight they should be picking.
It's really interesting, and that's a topic I've obviously dealt a lot with. So the trans kid argument.
Yeah.
And if you look at both sides, I think you can see the preservation of potential in both perspectives.
Except one of them, I think, is more genuine, and I think the other is more of a mot.
Yeah, I think there are logical problems with the one side rather than the other. The conservative case, of course, is we need to preserve the potential of children to be fertile and to have sexual function and all these other things, to have long-term health. And those things are pretty, unassailable in some sense. But if you listen to the progressive side, their argument is almost entirely like genocide. We need to save these kids from killing themselves later in life. And what's interesting about that, of course, is they don't really have a lot of information to back that up. For instance, blockers, which are probably the most contentious issue.
I remember a time when it was just established that you should not give caffeine to kids because it interacts with neurological development, and that's just not something you mess with unless you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
That seems like a very long time ago.
Yeah, and the conflict, I mean, this is sort of the quandary that we're in, right? Is that we're looking to the future and we're saying, all right, there are children with dysphoria. This is pretty undisputable. We know it happens. It's a thing that occurs. However, we don't have any way to predict whether those dysphoric children will grow up to have a persistent trans identity. We can guess, but it's definitely not for certain. And in fact, some studies suggest something like 90% of them, once they go through puberty, they desist, essentially. However, for that whatever percentage of dysphoric kids who grow up and persist, going through puberty is extremely distressing. And it basically permanent. It makes permanent a lot of changes that they otherwise would not want. So once you go through puberty, a lot of the physical changes are permanent. You can't go back, no matter how many hormones you go on.
And if your sex organs, whatever they are, aren't allowed to develop, you will become an asexual being. We used to have a name for that called a eunuch.
Yes. I mean, essentially what happens, a couple things happen physiologically when you're on hormone blockers. The genitals don't develop. Your puberty obviously is blocked. And well, one interesting side effect is if you are let's say, male to female, if you go on puberty blockers, you won't develop male features, but you also won't develop a big enough penis.
You won't have the meat required to create the thing that you want to have.
Yes, exactly. So you end up with a micro penis, and you have to start cutting other places to get what you want. So it's it's a tricky exchange, and most progressives will say, well, it's worth it still. Let's see, I think I am at my limit.
Like Sitch says, there's going to be a wave of lawsuits. This is going to blow back awful.
I know there's a lawsuit going on in Texas right now.
It's like, what happened to do no harm, you know?
Yeah. Because in Texas, there's a surgeon there who does mastectomies on females as young as 12.
Dude, how would you sleep at night? Like, how do you...
Apparently on a giant pile of money.
Yeah.
Because she would make TikTok videos talking about how great and how much success she was having. So, yeah, no.
No, I think you have to be some kind of a broken person, and you're drawn to the idea of destroying the potential of others for this to make any kind of sense.
I think I'm gonna stop. Okay.
But like, I was gonna say, even the destruction of potential thing is like, even in prison, in a population overrepresented by morally dubious people, even they understand that, like, you know, you do that to a kid, you're a special kind of bad.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like,
but again, I want to try to ref it back to the original discussion for a moment, because we're talking about lenses, the destruction of potential, because in the progressive view, it is that if you don't give them what they want, the loss of potential is in the individual life. They won't have the potential to get the surgical results they want. They'll become suicidal. They'll kill themselves, etc., etc. So that's kind of the.
You know, I thought I was a very fair person. You're more fair than me. It's probably because my elephant's like, no, it's wrong.
That's a lot of my videos are trying to get at what's actually going on in the other person's brain.
Oh, that's dangerous territory.
And that's where it's dark.
Think, and how did Ace Ventura put it? Stinky and loaded with danger.
Sometimes, but often it's worth it.
Oh yeah,
to do that.
All the good stuff that you want to know is guarded by like dark truths. It's kind of a mantra of mine. Like I have this idea that just about anything could be understood, even like the meaning of life stuff. Is just that there are things you'd experience as bitter pills all along the way to get there.
Mm-hmm. And I think we can even think about the bad faith stuff again, because as I was thinking about it, it's worthwhile to think about bad faith, if only to think about how we can be more good faith in our own conversations. Because when we see just how much conversations break down in, say, debate bro space, I think we can learn lessons from that to be more productive. This is why I like dialectic more than debate.
Yeah.
This is something that I don't know if you've watched a lot of Destiny's content?
Not so much.
I've started to consume more of his content, and I know he has gotten more and more into the rhetorical stuff, but he's also gotten a little more into the dialectic stuff. Because he's very open to having, say, very small content creators go on his show and talk to him about stuff.
I think it has a lot to do with your nature too, just like the kind of person you are, because I absorbed before I even interacted with anybody about like the God debate, you know, I knew all the arguments on both sides, backward and forward. I could have tons of different retorts, but as soon as I started actually interacting with people and having the discussion, I found that I was very different from the God debate bros. That I was like, a lot of times I'd be like, okay, if you're going to run into assholes, you probably don't want to use that argument. You probably want to use this one instead. You know, it just wasn't in my nature to just dunk on people. And I think that seems to be a factor too. It's like your motivation for doing it will affect how you do it. If you're just wanting to score wins and like, you know, beat people, it's going to show in your like style.
Look at me just clicking. Hey,
and a lot of people just want to fight. Like,
yes, they want to fight and they want to have optical wins. They want to avoid gotcha moments and they want to trick the other opponent into a gotcha moment. And that's it. That's how you win. That's the Demon Mama track. Oh goodness, I've watched too many Demon Mama debates.
I'm sorry. I cannot really watch these. Like, this is why I think like Adam and Sitch is such a great utility. Like, they could like hate me, they could mock me every show, but if they're going to get up on that cross and watch those videos for me so I don't have to watch them on my own, I'm still going to send super chats, because that's just too painful to do. They're like a buffer for the pain.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's really through their streams that I got to know of these characters, because I was definitely not in that sphere before.
I mean, I used to be able to listen to Christian apologists just rattle on, and somehow I could survive that. But this new generation is just like, oh my God. This is what happens when you get old. Some young people these days, you know.
Young people.
Hey, Stealthy Revolt. I'm not sure when you send that, but howdy right back to you.
I think you're ready to just wipe the floor with me here. Don't hold back.
I wasn't even watching.
Yeah, I don't know any of this. I don't know any of the strategies for this cards. I didn't even know there were cards. Okay, see, this is how bad I am.
Okay, I'm gonna drop some.
Look, I'm a girl. I play pony princess doll dress up games. I don't know nothing about Risk.
You know, I had this massive respect for you. You just cut it in half with the "I'm just a girl" bit.
I'm just a girl.
Was that No Doubt song is going to be in my head for the rest of the night now? Let me end. Okay, on your left near the bottom, you'll have some sparkling cards.
I see. Okay.
Okay.
How?
I give you extra armies.
Trade in? Trade in. Okay. Do I click? I just click on things. Okay. I will do.
And people have different motivations. Like who is that? Who's the guy that was on yesterday with Sitch and Adam, the distributist?
Dave. Mm-hmm.
He just wants to occupy the space. He actually isn't that interested in just dunking on people. But he does this thing that a friend I had in real life did, where he's just like a dodge ninja when it comes to like actually expressing what his position is, because it just, you know, actually clearly stating your position or what you support makes you vulnerable. So this weird kind of tap dance evolves to where, well, I thought you were saying this. Oh no, I wasn't saying that. Well, are you saying this? Well, let me tell you what I think. It's like, no.
Yeah, it's always difficult. You got sometimes very complex views too that are not easily facilitated in a short conversation. And I understand that, but
if you talk to them long enough, they'll take both sides of the same issue, and you're like, well, what the hell? Because a lot of their positioning will just be relative to whatever you are advocating. And probably not related, but have you ever had this experience where someone will actually take a position, and then later on you'll be, when they can't, it's unsustainable anymore, and you'll confront them, they'll act like they never had it. Like
yeah.
I had a friend at work, and for some reason, this was a while ago, but for some reason he's like, oh, this guy put up this 20-hour video of the thing just repeating over and over again. It's like, oh, somebody at YouTube had to watch all things. Like, do you think every video gets viewed by somebody at YouTube? And then he started the waffling thing. It's like, they would require a workforce the size of India to get through like 1 day's worth of uploads. And then one day he just started acting like he never had that position.
Yep, the waffling, I deal with that a lot. Because I'm the kind of person, I'll ask about 50 questions before I really want to dig into a debate. Because I really want to understand the other person's position. And like I said, if you're coming at someone who is performing in bad faith, they don't really want you to know their position. They just want to accuse you of not understanding. So every time you ask a question, they get defensive, or they accuse they'll say the question is a trick. I'm like, okay, if you don't want to answer it this way, just like explain what's wrong with the question, maybe come at the question a different way. Totally open to you. But they won't do it. They just think you're trying to trick them. Because I think a lot of it's projection, right?
Oh yeah.
They know that they're trying to trick you, so they can only assume that you are trying to trick them.
It's really difficult to conceive of someone acting more morally than you are. No matter where you're at on the spectrum. It's very painful to consider that you might be dealing with a person that's a better person than you.
Yeah. And I wonder if it's... We could talk about intelligence here. Because I know one of your questions was like, how do you tell just pure ignorance versus maliciousness in situations like this? Which I think is an interesting question.
Well, I think some people have learned to take hold of their comprehension knob and swing it between 1 and 10 to whatever will be most advantageous in the situation. It's like, if it would be very damaging to understand something somebody's telling you, they won't.
Yeah.
But
and I wonder, like, sometimes, yeah, and I wonder how, say, someone like Demon Mama, who, as far as I can tell, is not very intelligent, whether this is a case of someone who just doesn't know their own capabilities, and so they don't realize the strategies they're taking.
Well, I think some people are, I hate to say it, they're just NPCs, and they're just absorbing code from their environment and playing it out. They don't have any type of introspection that you would associate with a free will possessor. They are simply just reacting to their environment and picking up random code and throwing it against scenarios, and something that works better gets used more often, and it may not actually be that much more complicated than that.
Yeah,
I know it's kind of a cynical view of certain people, but it might be accurate. Like, I think it's good to be generous and assume the free will and introspection and intentions of people, but some people, it's just more efficient to write them off. And maybe I'm wrong.
You can always assume incompetence before maliciousness.
You know, that I held that for a long time, and it's currently my position, the idea that, how does the phrase go? Why you shouldn't assume malevolence when incompetence is, I forget how it goes. But incompetence,
malicious.
If someone is unconsciously trying to express aggression, being tactically incompetent is a way to accomplish that without blowback.
Yeah.
And I might be carrying over too much from a game called Rocket League that I play, where It's cars playing soccer. And I'm not actually that good at video games, and I'm playing against people like a third my age. So being able to predict what people are going to do is really, really my only way of offsetting the fact that these people are way faster and better reaction times and more precision. And after like 7,000 hours, a whole bunch of crap fell out of that. Just kind of the way people are unconsciously aggressive on each other. I'm not going to derail the stream with an off-topic thing, but it is my position that a lot of times malevolence masks itself as tactical incompetence.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. Unfortunately, I think a lot of debate bro culture rewards that.
Well, yeah.
It's become very incentivized to just play dirty and then play it off.
Lord Tennyson's pipe and
Milkman Dan
have joined us. Thanks for the comments. Sitchin Adam is a great resource. It's basically like a college level class that I would entitle the what do you call it? The politically insane. It's a lot.
And I enjoy, and I think I originally came across them. Am I coming through?
You're showing up, yeah.
Okay. I wasn't seeing my name go. I came across them originally through the J.K. Rowling Lindsay Ellis stream that they did ages ago. Because that was really my interest. Because I knew of Lindsay Ellis and I knew about J.K. Rowling. Those are two
Lindsay
topics
Ellis
I cared
is
about.
Fascinating to me.
She's fascinating. Like, I used to watch her film.
Oh yeah, the Channel stuff. Yeah,
I think her movie reviews are really insightful a lot of the time. But yeah, she's just kind of got sucked into this weird. A lot of them did,
it's my
right?
opinion that
SJW culture.
She's not ideologically possessed at all, but this is a whole other video. I think she's just like this incredibly tragic character, but not for any of the reasons that anybody else seems to be identifying. So it's probably my own crazy interpretation, but I think she just needs to occupy the space, and she'll do whatever she needs to, and she works really hard. But she also has this like incredibly negative self-judgment where she also doesn't think she's worthy of it. But she's also she has stayed in that environment. Like all the other people that were getting views on videos at the time back in the day, they're all gone. She's still around. There's a reason for that.
Yeah. Yeah. I look at people like her and I can't help but think it's some kind of Stockholm syndrome.
I don't think she's possessed at all. I think she's just put her finger in the wind and is doing it all cynically. I don't think that she buys into it at all. And she desperately needs to occupy the space to convince herself she's basically not trailer trash.
Maybe.
And
I don't know. I guess my reading is a little different then.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think anybody agrees with me.
I think she is surrounded by horrible people. She has made friends. True. She has made friends with really toxic, awful people who abuse her and use her to their whims, and she doesn't realize just how bad they are. Because these are people who will, on their face, say, they're all about justice, and they're all about LGBT rights, and they're all about blah, blah, blah. So they come off as quote-unquote good people, but they're actually just the scum of the earth.
Oh, yeah.
And they will ruin you the moment you cross them, and they'll feel there's no remorse whatsoever. Yeah, I think that's the kind of people she hangs around.
Oh, I agree there, but our main contention is that I don't think she believes any of it. I think she's desperately doing whatever she has to do to maintain the status and position that she has. But she hasn't actually been sucked in. She's not ideologically possessed. She's just playing the game and doing what she's got to do to be where she needs to be. But like I said, I don't think anybody
it's
really
a hard element to pick apart. Like, how do you tell sincerity
Okay,
in
this
in
is
an online world where everything is performative, really. Like just
assume
the
for a
fact that you
second
make videos.
I have a superpower to tell when people have no confidence in what they're saying. Just for a moment, when I watch Lindsay, when she's doing her humble brags, there's nothing behind it. She doesn't actually care. It's all performative. She's not doing it because she's trying to, like, she is driven to show her status over other people. She's doing it because she knows that's what she needs to do to keep the other people in place. Like, she's completely sincere in a lot of the things that the ideologically possessed people are compelled to do. She does it, and there's like nothing behind it. That, like I said, in my opinion,
I think certainly there's some level of insincerity. Because to some degree she's performing.
Well, she's also a really good actress.
Yeah, she has to play up certain things because she knows if she doesn't, she'll be eaten alive.
And that, I think that's her real fear. That's the real motivating force, that she'll become a nobody. And I know that's true for most people, but I think it's especially true for her.
Oh, I have a card. No matching cards. Okay. Gotcha.
Also, I might have had a little crush on her back in the Channel Awesome days.
Back when she was based.
Biasing me a bit.
Back when she was based and made good content? Yeah, I could understand that fully.
I seem to remember a hijab and cleavage in some video.
Yes.
Oh, well, I think I've hit most of the stuff that I wanted to bring up. I'm happy to keep going if there's anything else you wanted to talk about. But I feel like I don't have as much on offer, and I'm going to keep dragging us into weird places.
Well, we can always, let's see. I'm trying to think if I had anything written down myself. But I'm too busy losing this game to check my notes. Losing terribly, and it's great. Okay. Let's... Okay.
I kind of had a summary of, like, it doesn't really matter whether someone's aware or not that they're engaging in bad faith behavior. It's the fact that they're doing it. If you have the option to not engage with that person, that's probably the right choice. But if you're in a situation where you do have to engage with these people, knowing why they're doing what they're doing and what type of, I don't know, self-delusion they're engaged in can be useful, but it's going to take its toll on you. And that's what we have Adam and Stitch for. They can they can absorb some of the damage for me.
That's right. Let's see, should I take Indonesia? Let's go. Okay, I'm working my way to Australia. Let's go.
People are weird when I'm playing online with this game. It's like there'll be one person and they have a larger army than the 3 other people combined, and those 3 other people are still fighting each other. It's like, guys, like, do you not see the bigger threat here? Like, yeah, I'm going to lose, but I'm going to make sure you lose before me. It's so common.
I'm going to go fight the Middle East. This will go well. Oh, it doesn't go well.
If any of us want to win this game, we're going to have to stop fighting each other and, fight the guy who's got more armies than the rest of us combined. It seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah, but that's lame, though. We should just fight forever. Just like in real life. Let's see. What should I fortify? I don't know. This doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
I am going to wrap up the stream here.
Okay.
Was there anything else you want to say? Oh, wait. I want to say Gabriel Archange says good evening, and Milkman Dan says hey Kev, and Milkman Dan says welcome, here's an emu egg. Okay, and now I can edit. Well, thank you all for joining me. Thank you so much. Streaming solo is so hard, and having someone else take some of the weight off is awesome. I can't thank you enough.
Oh yeah, no problem. And if you ever want to do this again, I'm open for it.
Cool. Well, your topic next time.
My topic. Okay, I'll have to think of something.
I gave you homework.
Yeah, I'll bring it in some other time.
Well, I'm the expert layman, joined by Kava, and this has been Grinding Meaning 30, Bad Faith and Unconscious. Oh my god, I just drew a blank on the word.
It's on bad faith like and unconscious presuppositions.
Presuppositions.
Yep.
You all have a great day.